I still remember the exact weight of the dress in my hands, tulle and sequins trembling as I held it under harsh bathroom lights. The dress I had spent 2 months of babysitting money on, the dress I had dreamed about wearing since freshman year. The dress that was now streaked with permanent red dye, bleeding like a wound across the delicate cream fabric. My name is Sylvia Mercer, and I was about to learn what betrayal truly tastes like. "Oh my God, Sylvia, what happened?" Olivia's voice echoed off the bathroom tiles, a perfect performance of shock and concern. But I caught the flicker in her eyes, that tiny spark of satisfaction. My stomach twisted as I stared at her reflection in the mirror, this girl who had been my best friend since 7th grade. Her perfect blonde hair, her immaculate white dress, pristine and untouched. The prom queen frontrunner. The girl who had spent the past 3 months casually mentioning how Cole Richardson had been asking about me. The same Cole who had suddenly asked Olivia to prom yesterday. "You tell me," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "I left it hanging in the choir room during last period. You were the only one who knew it was there." Olivia's eyes widened, her hand flying to her chest in practiced innocence. "Are you accusing me?" "Sylvia, I would never." "Save it," I cut her off, carefully laying the ruined dress across the sink. "I know it was you. What I don't know is why." For a moment, her mask slipped. Something cold and calculating flickered across her face before she composed herself again. "You're upset. You're not thinking clearly," she said, reaching for my arm. "Look, you can borrow something of mine. I have that blue dress from last year's winter formal." I stepped back, her touch suddenly repulsive to me. "I don't want your charity, Olivia." "It's not charity, it's friendship," she insisted, but the words sounded hollow coming from her lips. "I'm trying to help you." I looked at her, really looked at her, and wondered how I had missed the signs. The way her compliments always came with subtle digs. How my successes seemed to pain her. How her helpfulness usually left me feeling smaller. "No," I said finally. "I don't think you are." I gathered the remains of my dress and walked out, leaving her standing alone in the bathroom. As the door swung shut behind me, I heard her call my name, but I didn't turn back. There were still 24 hours until prom. 24 hours to figure out how to show up anyway. The sewing machine hummed beneath my fingers, a steady rhythm in the quiet of my grandmother's attic. Outside, the setting sun cast long shadows through the dusty windows, painting the old wooden floorboards gold. "You know, when I was your age, we made all our own dresses," Grandma Eleanor said, carefully pinning another section of fabric. "Store-bought was for rich folks and special occasions." I smiled despite myself. "Different times, Grandma." "Some things don't change, though," she continued, her arthritic hands still precise with the pins. "Girls can still be cruel. And fabric can still be transformed with enough determination." I had arrived at her doorstep an hour after the bathroom confrontation, the ruined dress clutched to my chest, tears finally breaking free. She had listened without interruption as I poured out the whole sordid tale: Olivia, the dress, Cole, the betrayal that had been months in the making. Then she had simply risen from her rocking chair and said, "Well, let's get to work then." Now we sat surrounded by bolts of fabric pulled from her extensive collection, remnants from her days as a professional seamstress. The dress taking shape beneath my hands was nothing like the one I had originally planned to wear. Instead of cream and silver, this one emerged in deep midnight blue, with delicate hand-sewn crystals forming constellations across the bodice. "I still don't understand why she did it," I said, carefully guiding the fabric through the machine. "We've been friends for years." Grandma snipped a thread with practiced precision. Some people can't stand to see others shine. They'd rather dim your light than find their own. My phone buzzed again, the 5th time in 2 hours. Olivia, no doubt, with more excuses and fake apologies. You should answer eventually, Grandma said, noting my grimace. Not for her sake, but for yours. Closure matters. I sighed, setting down my needle to check the message. But it wasn't from Olivia. Cole, hey, heard about your dress. That really sucks. If you still want to go to prom, I'd be happy to take you instead of Olivia. Let me know. I stared at the screen, a bitter laugh escaping my lips. What is it? Grandma asked, peering over her glasses. I showed her the message. The plot thickens. Apparently Cole isn't going with Olivia anymore. Grandma's eyes narrowed slightly. Interesting timing. You think it's a trap? I think, she said carefully, that you need to decide what this prom really means to you. Is it about a boy? A dress? Or is it about not letting someone else determine your worth? I thought about that as I returned to the sewing machine. About Olivia's smug face when she'd watched me discover the ruined dress. About the years of friendship that now seemed like an elaborate game where I never knew the real rules. It's about showing up anyway, I said finally. On my own terms. Grandma nodded approvingly. Then let's make sure you outshine everyone in that room. We worked through the night, the dress taking shape beneath our combined efforts. By morning, my fingers were pricked and sore, my eyes heavy with exhaustion, but the creation hanging on the dress form was unlike anything I could have bought in a store. It told a story, my story, in every careful stitch and deliberate design choice. As the sun rose, casting new light across our work, I took a step back and truly looked at what we had created. It's beautiful, I whispered. Grandma stood beside me, satisfaction evident in her tired smile. No, dear. You're beautiful. The dress is just a reminder. I hugged her tightly, breathing in her familiar scent of lavender and fabric softener. Thank you, Grandma. For what? Teaching you skills you already had? She patted my cheek. Now go get some sleep. Tonight, you have a statement to make. My phone buzzed once more. Another message from Cole. I turned it off without reading it and headed to bed. Tonight wasn't going to be about him or Olivia. It was going to be about reclaiming my narrative, one stitch at a time. The hours before prom passed in a blur of preparation and nervous energy. My mother helped style my hair into an elegant updo, delicately intertwining small crystal pins that caught the light with every movement. You look stunning, sweetheart, she said, voice thick with emotion. I'm so proud of you. I stared at my reflection, hardly recognizing the young woman looking back at me. The dress fit perfectly, the midnight blue fabric flowing like water around my frame. The constellations of crystals across the bodice caught the light, creating the illusion that I was wearing a piece of the night sky. Grandma and I did good work, I agreed, smoothing my hands over the fabric. Mom's eyes glistened. It's not just the dress, Sylvia. It's how you've handled this whole situation. With grace and resilience. I thought about the text messages I'd ignored, the social media I'd avoided. Olivia had tried repeatedly to reach out, her messages vacillating between desperate apologies and thinly veiled threats about social suicide if I made a scene at prom. The last one had simply read, "Please don't come tonight. I'm begging you." I almost didn't, I admitted to my mother. For a minute there, I thought about just staying home. And now? I straightened my shoulders, watching as the crystals shifted and sparkled. Now I'm going to prom. Alone. And I'm going to have a fantastic time. The doorbell rang, startling us both. Are you expecting someone? Mom asked. I shook my head, bewildered. We made our way downstairs to find my father opening the door to reveal Cole Richardson standing awkwardly on our porch, dressed in a classic black tux, holding a small white box. Cole? I asked, genuine confusion in my voice. What are you doing here? He looked up, and for a moment, seemed speechless. Wow. Sylvia. You look incredible. I felt my cheeks warm despite my resolution to remain unmoved by him. Thanks. But that doesn't answer my question. He shifted uncomfortably. I brought you this. He extended the box, which I reluctantly accepted. Inside was a delicate corsage of blue flowers that matched my dress perfectly. I was hoping you might reconsider going to prom with me. My father cleared his throat pointedly. Young man, I think there's been some confusion. Sylvia already has plans to attend the prom on her own. Cole looked between us, his expression earnest. I know I messed up. Olivia told me you weren't interested, that you were going with someone else. By the time I found out she'd lied, I'd already asked her. And then when I heard what she did to your dress. He trailed off, running a hand through his carefully styled hair. I broke things off immediately. A week ago, this moment would have been everything I wanted. Cole Richardson on my doorstep, looking at me like I was the only girl in the world. But now, it felt complicated. I appreciate the gesture, I said carefully. But I think I'd still prefer to go alone tonight. Disappointment flashed across his face, but he nodded respectfully. I understand. But maybe, could I meet you there? Save you a dance? I considered his request, weighing the sincerity in his eyes against my own newly discovered independence. One dance, I agreed finally. No promises beyond that. His smile was genuine and warm. That's more than fair. You really do look beautiful, Sylvia. After he left, my mother looked at me with raised eyebrows. That was unexpected. Life's full of surprises, I replied, setting the corsage aside. I wouldn't wear it, it didn't match the story I was trying to tell tonight. As I finished getting ready, my phone buzzed with a text from Grandma. Remember who made that dress, Starlight? Not just the hands that sewed it, but the strength that inspired it. I smiled at the nickname, Starlight, her tribute to the constellation design we'd created together. Taking one last look in the mirror, I made a final decision. I'd wear my grandmother's antique sapphire earrings, something old to complement something new. Ready? My father called from downstairs. I took a deep breath, gathering my courage along with my small handbag. Ready, I called back, and for the first time in days, I truly was. The school gymnasium had been transformed, almost unrecognizable beneath twinkling lights and flowing fabric. This year's theme was Enchanted Evening, and the decorating committee had gone all out, creating a magical forest atmosphere with paper lanterns hanging from simulated trees and a twinkling starlit ceiling. As I stepped through the entrance alone, I felt a momentary pang of anxiety. Walking into prom without a date or even a friend group was not how I'd imagined this night. But the alternative, staying home, letting Olivia win, was worse. The chatter near the entrance died down as I walked in. Then, gradually, whispers spread through the crowd like ripples in a pond. I caught snippets as I moved further into the room. Is that Sylvia Mercer? That dress is incredible. Didn't her date dump her for Olivia? I held my head high, pretending not to hear, focusing instead on the beauty of the decorations, the pulse of the music. I was here. That was what mattered. Sylvia. I turned to see Madison Chen, editor of the school newspaper and yearbook, hurrying toward me, camera in hand. "Oh my God, that dress is stunning," she gushed, genuine admiration in her eyes. "Did you make it yourself?" "My grandmother and I did," I confirmed, warmth spreading through me at her enthusiasm. "It's incredible. The detail work on the bodice, are those constellations?" She circled me, examining the dress from all angles. "Would you mind if I took some photos for the yearbook? We're doing a special feature on prom fashion this year." I blinked in surprise. "Really? You want to feature my dress? Are you kidding? It's the most original thing here. Everyone else is wearing the same 5 dresses from the mall in different colors." She raised her camera. "So, can I?" I nodded, slightly dazed by this turn of events. For the next few minutes, Madison directed me through a series of poses, capturing the dress from different angles. Other students gathered to watch, many offering compliments that felt unexpectedly genuine. It was during this impromptu photo session that I spotted Olivia across the room. She stood near the punch bowl, stunning in her white designer gown, but the confident smile she usually wore had vanished. Instead, she stared at me with an expression I couldn't quite decipher, something between shock and dismay. Beside her, her second-in-command Zoe whispered something in her ear, eyes darting between us. Olivia nodded stiffly, then plastered on a smile and began making her way toward me. "That's perfect, Sylvia," Madison said, reviewing the photos on her camera. "These are going to look amazing in the feature." "Oh," she glanced up, noticing Olivia's approach. "Heads up. Hurricane Olivia incoming." I straightened, gathering my newfound confidence around me like armor. "It's fine. I've got this." Madison gave me a supportive nod before disappearing into the crowd, leaving me to face my former best friend alone. "Sylvia," Olivia greeted, her voice honey-sweet but her eyes cold. "I'm surprised to see you here. After everything." "Why?" I asked simply. "Because you ruined my dress? Or because you thought that would ruin me?" She had the decency to flinch, glancing around to ensure no one was close enough to overhear. "I don't know what you're talking about. I told you, I had nothing to do with that." "Save it, Olivia. We both know the truth." Her perfect facade cracked slightly. "Fine. You want the truth? You didn't deserve that dress. You didn't deserve Cole. You've always been the sidekick, Sylvia. My sidekick. But lately, you've been forgetting your place." The words should have hurt, but instead, they clarified everything. All those years of friendship, of standing in her shadow, accepting her backhanded compliments, believing I needed her approval, seemed suddenly absurd. "My place?" I repeated, a strange calm settling over me. "You're right. I had forgotten my place. It's not behind you, Olivia. It never was." I gestured to my dress. "I made this. With my own hands. When you destroyed what I bought, you thought you were taking something from me. But you actually gave me something instead, a reminder of who I really am." Her composure slipped further, anger flashing in her eyes. "You think one homemade dress changes anything? By Monday, everyone will have forgotten all about this little moment of yours." "Maybe," I conceded. "But I won't forget. And neither will you." Before she could respond, the crowd parted and Cole appeared, his eyes finding mine immediately. He smiled, oblivious to the tension crackling between Olivia and me. "Sylvia," he said warmly. "You promised me a dance, remember? Olivia's eyes darted between us, realization dawning. You too, she began, her voice tight. Just one dance, I clarified, more for my benefit than hers. I accepted Cole's outstretched hand, allowing him to lead me toward the dance floor, leaving Olivia standing alone, a reversal of positions that wasn't lost on either of us. As Cole and I swayed to the slow melody, I caught Madison taking more photos from the edge of the dance floor. Something told me this moment would indeed make it into the yearbook. You really do look amazing tonight, Cole said softly. I smiled. Thank you. The dress means a lot to me. It's not just the dress, he insisted, echoing my mother's earlier sentiment. It's you, Sylvia. The way you handled everything, with such grace and strength. It's impressive. I considered his words, the genuine admiration in his eyes. A week ago, this moment would have been the culmination of everything I wanted. Now, it felt like just one small part of a much larger story, my story. I'm learning, I told him honestly. About myself. About what I want. And what do you want? He asked, curiosity evident in his voice. I glanced over his shoulder, catching a glimpse of Madison showing her camera to another staff member, both looking excitedly at whatever image she'd captured. Beyond them, Olivia stood with Zoe, watching us with thinly veiled resentment. I'm still figuring that out, I admitted. But I know it's bigger than prom. Bigger than high school politics. As the song ended, I stepped back, offering him a genuine smile. Thank you for the dance, Cole. He seemed to understand that I wasn't ready for more, not tonight. Anytime, Sylvia. I mean that. As he walked away, Madison approached, practically bouncing with excitement. Sylvia, you won't believe this. I sent some of your dress photos to my cousin who works at Style Teen magazine. She wants to feature you in their Real Teen Fashion section. Can I get your number to pass along to her? I blinked, momentarily speechless. Are you serious? Completely. She says your dress is exactly the kind of original design they're looking to highlight. As Madison rambled about deadlines and photo requirements, I caught sight of Olivia watching us, her face a storm of emotions. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Because in trying to dim my light, she had inadvertently helped me shine brighter than ever before. I gave Madison my contact information, still dazed by this unexpected turn of events. As I moved through the rest of the evening, dancing with friends, accepting compliments on my dress, even being pulled aside by our fashion design teacher to discuss a special project, I felt a strange sense of gratitude building inside me. Not for Olivia's cruelty, but for what it had revealed, my own resilience, creativity, and strength. By the time they announced Prom King and Queen, to no one's surprise, Cole and Olivia, I found I didn't care about the plastic crowns or the brief, awkward dance they shared beneath the spotlight. I was too busy planning constellations of my own. The magazine feature came out 2 weeks after prom, just as we were heading into finals. The 2-page spread featured 3 photos of me in the midnight blue dress, along with a short interview about the design process and inspiration. Starlight Rising, high school senior creates viral prom dress after sabotage, the headline read. I hadn't mentioned Olivia by name in the interview, referring only to an unfortunate incident with my original dress, but somehow the full story had made its way to the reporter anyway. The article painted me as something of an underdog triumph, the quiet girl who responded to mean girl tactics with creativity and grace. It was strange seeing myself described that way, even stranger to walk the school hallways and feel people's perceptions of me shifting. Suddenly, I was no longer Sylvia, Olivia's friend, but simply Sylvia Mercer, the girl from the magazine. Madison had printed extra copies of the feature for the school newspaper, and by lunchtime, it seemed everyone had seen it. As I entered the cafeteria, an unusual hush fell over my usual table, where Olivia sat surrounded by our former friend group. For a moment, I hesitated, old habits nearly pulling me toward them. But then Zoe looked up, caught my eye, and quickly looked away, whispering something to Olivia. The invisible strings that had bound me to that table for years suddenly felt flimsy and artificial. I turned away, scanning the room until I spotted Madison waving from a table near the windows. "The woman of the hour," she called as I approached. "Come sit with us. We're planning the final yearbook layout." As I settled in with Madison and the yearbook staff, I caught Olivia watching me from across the room, her expression unreadable. For a moment, our eyes locked, and I felt a pang of something, not quite regret, but a wistfulness for what might have been if our friendship had been built on mutual respect instead of her need for control. The moment passed when my phone buzzed with a text from Grandma. "Saw the magazine, Starlight. So proud. Next project this weekend?" I smiled, typing back a quick yes please before turning my attention to the yearbook discussion. "So, Sylvia," Madison was saying, "we want to feature your dress in the defining moments section. That okay with you?" I nodded, surprised but pleased. "Sure. If you think it fits." "Are you kidding? It's perfect. Students overcoming adversity, expressing themselves, that's exactly what we want to highlight." As they continued discussing layout options, Cole stopped by our table, setting his tray down beside mine. "Mind if I join?" he asked, his question directed at everyone but his eyes on me. There was a collective shrug of approval from the group, and he settled in, immediately engaging in the yearbook conversation as if he'd been part of this crowd all along. Later, as we walked to chemistry together, he broached the subject I'd been avoiding. "I broke up with Olivia," he said quietly. "For real this time. After I saw that article, the full story about what she did to your dress, I just couldn't be with someone capable of that kind of cruelty." I nodded, unsure how to respond. Part of me had already moved beyond the whole prom drama, focused instead on the unexpected opportunities that had emerged from it. The magazine feature had led to an invitation to a summer fashion workshop in New York. The dress had inspired a portfolio that strengthened my college applications. Grandma and I had started working on new designs every weekend. "I'm sorry," I offered finally, meaning it. "I know breakups are hard, even when they're necessary." He gave me a small smile. "You really are something else, Sylvia. Always seeing the best in people, even after everything." "Not the best," I corrected. "Just the truth. Olivia has her own battles. It doesn't excuse what she did, but understanding doesn't require forgiveness," he finished, surprising me with his insight. "Anyway, I was wondering if maybe, when you're ready, we could try going on a real date? No drama, no prom politics. Just us." I considered his offer, this glimpse of a potential future path. "I'd like that," I said honestly. "But not quite yet. I need some time to figure out who I am without all of this high school hierarchy defining me." He nodded, respect evident in his expression. "Take all the time you need. I'll be here." As we parted ways at the classroom door, I spotted Olivia at her desk, watching our interaction with undisguised interest. When our eyes met, she quickly looked away, focusing intently on her textbook. I took my usual seat, 2 rows behind her, and pulled out my sketchbook. While the teacher set up the day's lab, I found myself drawing a new design, a phoenix rising from scattered ashes, its wings forming a protective circle. Perhaps there was still a dress to be made from this experience. One last creation to capture the full arc of the story, not just the betrayal, but the transformation that followed. By the time the bell rang, ending class, I had a complete sketch. Not just a prom dress, but something more mature and resolute. A graduation dress, perhaps. A symbol of endings and beginnings. As I gathered my things, I noticed Olivia lingering by the door. For a moment, I thought she might speak to me, might finally offer a genuine apology or explanation. But she simply watched as I approached, then stepped aside without a word. Some bridges, once burned, cannot be rebuilt. And sometimes, that's for the best. But as I passed her, I surprised myself by saying softly, "I hope you find whatever it is you're looking for, Olivia." "I really do." The shock on her face was the last image I took with me into the hallway, not of my former friend, but of someone whose story had intersected with mine, taught me hard lessons, and ultimately helped shape me into someone stronger. Someone who knew how to create beauty from destruction. Someone whose light could no longer be dimmed by others. Graduation day arrived with perfect June weather, the kind of golden sunshine that seems to promise infinite possibilities. As I slipped into the dress Grandma and I had labored over for weeks, a flowing creation the color of dawn, with delicate embroidery depicting a phoenix rising, I felt a profound sense of completion. The girl who had started senior year as someone's sidekick was graduating as entirely her own person. "Oh, sweetheart," Mom said, tearing up as I descended the stairs. "You look like the future itself." Dad stood beside her, uncharacteristically emotional. "Your grandmother would have been so proud." A shadow passed over the moment. Grandma had suffered a mild stroke 2 weeks earlier. She was recovering well at the local hospital but wouldn't be able to attend the ceremony. "I know," I said, touching the pendant around my neck, a small silver star she had given me the day before her stroke. "We FaceTimed yesterday so she could see the finished dress." "And the acceptance letter?" Mom asked, her eyes brightening. I nodded, the excitement bubbling up again. She was over the moon. Said she always knew I'd end up at Parsons. The prestigious design school had been a distant dream until the magazine feature caught the attention of an admissions counselor. The resulting portfolio review, recommendation from the Style Teen editor, and impressive final interview had secured me a spot, along with a partial scholarship that made the impossible suddenly within reach. "Well," Dad said, checking his watch, "we should get going. Don't want to be late for your big day." As we drove to the school, I thought about how much had changed in just a few months. The magazine feature had led to a small but growing Instagram following for my designs. The summer workshop in New York had turned into a potential internship opportunity. And my relationship with Cole had evolved into something measured and genuine, occasional dates and long conversations, with no rush toward defining whatever we might become. The parking lot was already filling up when we arrived. As I made my way toward the gym where graduates were gathering, I heard someone call my name. Olivia stood near the entrance, resplendent in her own graduation gown and honor cords. We hadn't spoken since that day in chemistry class, maintaining a careful distance that our teachers and classmates had learned to navigate. "Sylvia," she said again, hesitant now that I had stopped. That dress. You made it, didn't you?" I nodded, surprised by the genuine admiration in her voice. "It's beautiful," she said simply. "Thank you." An awkward silence stretched between us, for years of friendship and 2 months of estrangement creating a gap neither of us quite knew how to bridge. "I heard about your grandmother," she finally said. "I'm sorry she can't be here today." "She'll see the pictures," I said. And I'm visiting her right after. Olivia nodded, fidgeting with her honor cords. I also heard about Parsons. Congratulations. That's really amazing, Sylvia. Thank you, I said again, studying her face. There was something different about her now, a vulnerability that hadn't been there before. Harvard pre-law, right? That's what you always wanted. She looked surprised that I remembered. Yeah. Full ride, actually. That's incredible, Olivia. Congratulations. Another pause, laden with all the things left unsaid. I'm sorry, she blurted suddenly. About the dress. About everything. I was jealous and scared and cruel, and you didn't deserve any of it. The apology caught me off guard, not just its timing, but its apparent sincerity. Why? I asked, the question that had haunted me for months. We were friends, Olivia. Best friends. She looked away, her composure cracking slightly. Because you were getting noticed. For your art, for your kindness. Even Cole. She shook her head. I've always been the center of attention. It's how I define myself. And suddenly, it felt like you were outshining me without even trying. So you tried to dim my light, I said softly. Yes, she admitted, meeting my eyes again. And it backfired spectacularly. I couldn't help but smile slightly at that. It did, didn't it? A small answering smile flickered across her face. For what it's worth, I'm glad it did. You deserved that magazine feature. You deserve Parsons. You deserve. She glanced over my shoulder, where Cole was now entering the gym, everything good that's coming your way. I considered her words, the genuine regret in her eyes. Thank you for saying that. It means a lot. Does it? She hesitated. Does it change anything? Between us? I took a deep breath, weighing my response carefully. I don't think we can go back to what we were before, Olivia. Too much has happened. She nodded, disappointment evident in her expression. But, I continued, maybe we can move forward. Build something new. Something better. Hope flickered in her eyes. I'd like that. Ms. Chen, Ms. Mercer. Our class advisor's voice cut through the moment. Please take your places in line. The ceremony is about to begin. As we moved to our assigned positions in the processional, Olivia touched my arm lightly. Your dress really is incredible, Sylvia. A perfect statement piece for graduation. That's the idea, I said, smoothing my hands over the embroidered phoenix. Every ending is also a beginning. She nodded thoughtfully. I like that. As the music began and we filed into the auditorium, I caught sight of my parents in the crowd, their faces shining with pride. Beyond them, I saw Madison signaling frantically to get my attention, then pointing to someone beside her, a woman in a sleek business suit who I recognized from her profile picture as the Style teen editor. My heart raced a little faster. I hadn't expected her to actually come to the graduation. The ceremony itself passed in a blur of speeches, awards, and name-calling. When I crossed the stage to receive my diploma, an unexpected cheer rose from the audience, not just from my parents, but from classmates and teachers who had watched my journey unfold. After the ceremony, as we mingled on the lawn outside, the Style teen editor approached, her smile warm and professional. Sylvia Mercer, she said, extending her hand. I had to see the magnificent graduation dress in person. Madison has been sending me updates on your work. I shook her hand, still somewhat starstruck. Thank you for coming, Ms. Reynolds. And for the feature. It changed everything for me. Your talent changed everything, she corrected. We just gave it a platform. And speaking of platforms, she handed me a business card. Call me when you get to New York. We have an internship opening that might interest you. As she walked away, I stared at the card in disbelief. Madison appeared at my side, practically vibrating with excitement. Did she just offer you an internship? At Style Teen? I nodded, still processing. I think so. This is huge. She bounced on her toes. First the magazine feature, then Parsons, now this? Sylvia Mercer, you're officially living the dream. I laughed at her enthusiasm. I don't know about that. But it does feel like things are moving in the right direction. As we chatted, I spotted Olivia across the lawn, posing for photos with her parents. Our eyes met briefly, and she offered a small, genuine smile. I returned it, feeling something shift and settle inside me, not forgiveness, exactly, but acceptance. A recognition that our story together had closed one chapter and perhaps, someday, might open another. Cole found me next, his graduation cap askew, his smile bright. There's the designer extraordinaire, he teased, but the admiration in his eyes was real. That dress is getting almost as much attention as your prom creation. That's the idea, I said, smoothing the fabric. Make a statement coming and going. He laughed. Well, you certainly succeeded. He hesitated, suddenly more serious. So, New York in the fall? Looks that way, I confirmed. You're still set on UCLA? He nodded. Film school. It's always been the dream. Coast to coast, I mused. That's going to be challenging, he acknowledged. But not impossible. Not if we want to try. The question hung between us, did we want to try? Was this connection worth maintaining across thousands of miles and different lives? One step at a time, I suggested. Let's enjoy the summer first. His smile returned. Speaking of which, my parents are hosting a graduation party tonight. Would you be my date? I considered the invitation. As long as you don't mind if I need to leave early to visit my grandmother at the hospital. Of course not, he said immediately. In fact, I'd be happy to drive you there. As we made plans, I caught my parents watching us from a distance, their expressions a mixture of pride and that particular parental sadness that comes with witnessing a child truly grow up. I waved them over, eager to introduce them to Ms. Reynolds and share the news about the potential internship. As Mom and Dad approached, their faces lit with the particular pride that comes from watching your child find their path in the world. Mr. and Mrs. Mercer, Ms. Reynolds greeted them with professional warmth. Your daughter has remarkable talent. The kind of natural eye for design that can't be taught. I watched my parents absorb the compliment, saw the way Mom's eyes glistened with unshed tears. We've always known she was special, Dad said simply. Later that evening, as Cole and I sat beside Grandma's hospital bed, I showed her the graduation photos on my phone. Her eyes brightened at the sight of the phoenix dress in its full glory. Just as I imagined it, she whispered, her voice still weak but her spirit undimmed. A perfect ending and beginning. She reached for my hand, her fingers tracing the calluses formed from hours of sewing. Remember, Starlight, she said, using the nickname that now carried so much meaning, some people will always try to dim your brightness. But true light comes from within. I squeezed her hand gently, understanding the wisdom of her words in a way I couldn't have before Olivia's betrayal. Sometimes the greatest gifts come disguised as wounds. Sometimes we need to be torn apart to discover what we're truly made of. As Cole drove me home beneath a sky brilliant with actual stars, I thought about constellations, how distance doesn't diminish their connection, how darkness only makes them more visible. "What are you thinking about?" he asked softly. I smiled, fingering the delicate embroidery of my dress. "That some things are worth fighting for. Some aren't. And wisdom is knowing the difference." Whatever came next, New York, Parsons, style teen, I was ready, needle and thread in hand, to stitch together my own destiny.